So, in my efforts to be as fair as possible, I wasn't actually going to cover this, but, seeing as I've covered the Pyrocynical thing for a lot, but I feel like in order to be as fair and transparent as possible, I'm going to cover Ivory's response just so that we can all clear the record. You can have both sides, you can formulate your own opinion. Since my last video on the Pyrocynical situation, it seems like most people are on Pyro's side now, which is pretty interesting. It seems like the community has learned a lot from past allegations, not to judge immediately, also not to dismiss the cases immediately, but rather to wait for the evidence to come out before you form your final opinion. Ivory has come out with his statement, and it seems like he's getting a bit bombarded. However, I think he's got a couple points here, and I think it's worth talking about this just so you can have all the context possible. Is Pyrocynical a groomer? I don't believe so. Is Pyrocynical a little bit sus for this? Yeah, probably. Let me explain why. So Pyrocynical's response to the grooming allegations was pretty straightforward. It was pretty short. He points out Tommy C's interview and how the grooming allegation doesn't hold up. He points out inconsistency in Ivory's story. He points out the fact that Ivory was not upfront about his age specifically, as well as a couple other things in his response. I covered it completely in my last Pyrocynical video. You can go check that out. I think I threw that up on Tuesday. Here's the problem, though. This isn't entirely done just yet. Tommy C, the guy who did the interview with Ivory, points out here, now that we know that Ivory had contact with Pyro for sure, if Ivory lied about his age, why did the DMs he released from deleted user, who is almost certainly Pyro at this point, he clearly states he was a minor here. Both me and Lionhead have confirmed the pic below, where when Ivory shows all the DMs he's ever had with Pyrocynical, he shows the fact that he says, not only am I a minor. Now, that does not mean that he told Pyro his age specifically, that he was 15. Minor could also mean 16, which in the UK, if Pyro was 19 years old and Ivory was 16 years old, then conversations like this could be completely legal and, well, I mean, morals are subjective, but for the most part, I think most people would not even look differently at a situation like this if Ivory was 16 rather than being 15. A 4-year age gap does not cross Romeo and Juliet law, but a 3-year age gap, although it's debatable morally, for the most part, that's within UK law. They can have conversations like this explicitly. They can, go the full mile, basically. So if he said to Pyro that he was a minor and Pyro assumed as a 19-year-old that he was 16, then it would have been okay. Now, you can still criticize Pyro and say that, well, he shouldn't have assumed. He should have, when Ivory said that he was a minor to Pyro, he should have probably been like, oh, really, you're a minor? Like, how old? Or maybe just when he heard minor, just completely exit the conversation altogether. However, he didn't do that. And you can certainly criticize Pyro for not, following through with the age specifically and, being a little bit careless. Now, in fairness to Pyro, this could also be explained by the fact that Pyro was 19, and as someone who's 19 myself, I mean, I am 19, I don't really think about, I'm not always thinking about how, like, when I'm speaking to, like, a 15-year-old, for instance, ooh, I gotta be careful and, not, be inappropriate or whatever. It's just not something I really think about much because obviously, like, the age gap, I don't feel significantly older than people in freshman or sophomore years in high school. You know what I mean? Like, not that I've ever had any, sexual conversations with somebody of that age or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that I don't look at somebody who's 15 or 16 as somebody who is significantly younger than me and someone that I need to be cautious around. You know what I mean? Like, I'm 19. I still feel like a kid myself, even though I'm not. I like, my mentality is still closer to somebody of that age than somebody who's like 40 years old and talking to somebody who's 15. Wherein somebody who's 40 years old, obviously they're way more mindful of the fact, well, they should be unless they're a pedophile, that they probably shouldn't be talking about shit to a 15-year-old. Anyway, Edwin points out here, I don't like that Pyro tried to prove inconsistency, showing a tweet from Ivory, which we'll get into in just a second. Why crop out the part where Ivory also said he wanted space, and why not apologize to Ivory? And this gets into Ivory's response. Now, he has two responses here, two threads. He said, all I'm saying to Niall's response, Niall being Pyro, is that the I don't care DM was taken out of context and I said I needed space afterwards. I didn't want to hear from this person, so I said whatever I could to get him out of my DMs. Also, the person who said I lied about my age apologized to me in DMs. This directly attacks Pyro's 2 points, one of which is that Ivory was inconsistent, wherein somebody else was sexting with him when they were 19 and he was 15 as well, but he seemingly didn't care about that. And he also attacks the point that the person who said Ivory lied about his age actually apologized to him and admitted that they were wrong here. So here in the first set of DMs, we can see the person wrote to Ivory and said, hey, we had the whole talk about what we did years ago. For me, it was nothing more than furry role-playing with a total stranger. But for you, I didn't know it could affect you like this very much. I thought you moved on after we had our talk again last year, so I'm sorry to know it affected you this way. Do you want to talk about it? To which Ivory says, no, you're fine. I don't care. This was the screenshot that was shown in Pyro's response. However, it continues here from what Ivory is showing. The person writing, I know I am, but you don't seem to be. If you really are hurt by what happened, I'm here for you, man. Ivory then said, I just need space right now, I think. So he's kind of confused. He doesn't really know how to respond to this. Here is the person apologizing for getting Ivory's age wrong. This is the Reddit Moments account that we were talking about earlier. Ivory also says, here's proof that debunks his claim that he didn't know my age, along with other things in the post. To which he shows this right here, showing a bunch of DMs that were dumped by Lumi that we looked at on stream or whatever. We showed the Tommy C DM, so we know what he's talking about already. This is his final response, where he says, this situation is a perfect representation of why victims don't come out about their experiences. I have ample proof, and all my friends who knew Pyro know what happened. I don't need to prove this shit to random strangers, but my hope with talking about this on a public platform was that I could progress the conversation about weeding out exploitation of minors, because it's a thing that runs rampant in all online communities, and it has potential to ruin people's lives before they even start. On top of that, it's also a matter of alerting potential victims to past predatory behavior. I'm confirmed correct when saying that Pyro sent NSFW to a child, and you'd be blind to disregard his majority child fanbase being extremely easy prey for him if he decided to repeat that. This shit goes much deeper than me clout chasing, and I struggle to see how people can't grasp this. The environment that's been made and upheld is more inclined to defend predators than the children that they prey on, and that choice of who to protect is strictly enforced. Examples that come to mind are me being apologized to for being RP'd with by an adult and then having me reply taken out of context and used against me in Niall's response, being gaslit by Niall's girlfriend and her mentioning incriminating shit to get me to back down on speaking out. All of the people from those circles tell me that I could deal with it privately, which would make it insanely easy to sweep under the rug, along with people telling me that I was egging it on when the entire point of this, no matter how I was responding, was Niall was talking to a child. It's all part of a social dynamic that allows influential people in online communities to prey on their friends groups and or audience with as little consequences as possible. And it's reinforced via people doing the same starstruck clout chasing shit I'm being accused of doing. And that's something that's true that he brings up here, is that, you know, Pyrocynical's girlfriend, those DMs look horrible. And that was what initially, before Pyro even responded, pushed me and a lot of people in my friend group to say, hey, Pyro really needs to respond to this. And even after his response, no matter what you think about Pyro's response, whether you think he's full of shit or whether you think he had some points there, the DMs between Ivory and Pyrocynical's girlfriend still look terrible to this day. They just look brain dead, if I'm being honest with you. Now, that all being said, I think we can wrap this up and conclude this by saying Pyrocynical is not a groomer. Groomer, to me at least, means that Pyrocynical would have primed this kid for sex or something like that, when that was never the case, and if it was the case, it hasn't been proven. Regardless, the fact remains, Pyrocynical talked inappropriately to a minor. Perhaps the minor should have been more upfront about a few things in the situation. Whether you think Pyrocynical took him out of context or not, that's also up to interpretation. Perhaps he just didn't think that that information was necessary to show. I don't know. Regardless, though, is Pyrocynical a groomer? Me personally, I'm gonna go ahead and say no. That being said, whether or not you think this is sus or not, that's really up to you. I just think that this is a mistake, and it just goes to show that you probably shouldn't talk to your fans like this, because it's probably going to get you into some trouble. And if you absolutely have to, definitely verify ages. And if the person says they're a minor or below the age of 18, and if it just looks bad optically speaking, just don't engage, because it's just going to land you into some trouble. I think that's absolutely safe to say. Regardless, I'd like to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. My name's Augie RFC. You guys hear the music. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Hopefully you guys have a good day, and take care, everyone. See y'all later, everyone.